When most people think about the earth element, they think about grounding. But the earth element is about so much more than that. The earth element is about your body, your physical body, your home, the money in your bank account or the lack thereof. The earth element is also about your priorities and the boundaries that you keep, the promises that you follow through with. In witchcraft, the earth element is about asking the question, how do we make this real? How do we bring this into the physical plane? So in tonight's episode, we're going to be talking all about the earth element, including correspondences, practices, and ways that you can work with the earth element in your own magic. So merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. And tonight we're here with the earth element part 1. This is correspondences and practices. So welcome to those joining us live. Say hi in the chat and let us know that you are here. We'll have a Q&A at the end as always. You can leave your questions and comments in the chat. And make sure to leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the feed, and that will just help us get this video out to more people. So we're going to dive in. We have a lot to talk about tonight. And many of you know, too, this is part 1 of 2 different episodes that we're going to be doing on this element. And we're also, this particular series of 2 episodes is part of a larger series that we're also working on. So far we have done the earth element as well. We've done the air element, the fire element, the water element, and then that brings us now to earth. So let us dive in, and next week we'll be continuing the discussion of the earth element, but this time talking about shadow work and how we can use the earth element in our shadow work practices. So what does the earth element represent? Well, before we talk about that, it's important to kind of notice where the earth element is and where it's placed among the other elements. So air gives us our thoughts and our ideas. Fire gives us courage and desire and self-belief that we need in order to practice our magic or even to show up in the mundane world. Water helps to connect us to our feelings and our emotions. But then earth says, how do we bring all of this together in order to make it into physical form? So that's really what we're going to be thinking about today. Earth is connected to our physical body. Earth is connected to our root chakra. Earth is connected to the material world, to our home and our shelter, to our food, to our nourishment, whatever that means to us, and also to our cooking. Earth is related to our money, to our work, to our resources of all kinds, to protection and physical boundaries that we might create. Earth is connected to fertility and growth. It's connected to our ancestors, which is something we don't always think about here nearing the beginning of summer. We think of ancestors as being something connected to the later part of the year, closer to Samhain. But our ancestors are a constant reminder that the earth element is always with us. And earth is connected to the land that we live on, to the place where we call home, and to belonging in any of those places. And the earth element is our ability to follow through. Now, earth magic can look like many different things. So sometimes, like I said in the intro, people will think of earth element, the earth element or earth magic is really just about being grounded. And while that is a very major part of it, it's not the only thing. And our earth magic can show up in a variety of different ways. As we'll talk about later, it's not just lighting a candle and working with herbs and stones. It's also about some of the simple and mundane things that we forget are magic. So for example, feeding yourself the right foods for your body and making sure you're nourished is earth magic. Cleaning your home with intention can be considered earth magic. Paying attention to your money, creating a routine that you can stick to that feels good for your body and for your mental health. Keeping a promise to yourself, maybe when promises have been hard to keep in the past. Planting something and tending to it, and that can be something physical that you plant, but it can also be something mental or emotional that you plant. Protecting your peace, your time, your body, and your resources. All of this can be earth magic. Earth asks us to stop treating the spiritual and the physical like they're 2 different things and to realize that it's all one and merged together and blended. So in earth work or earth magic, We work with the physical world, and the physical world is part of the spell. So, for example, like I mentioned, your prosperity spell that you might do can be about your candle and the herbs that you use and the oils that you use to dress that candle. It can be about the stones that you use in that practice. It can be about the intention that you create around the type of prosperity that you want. Maybe you like doing witches ladders like my coven does, and it could be about the braiding together of that of your intention into those ribbons. But earth magic is so much more than that. So if we were doing a prosperity spell, it can also include checking your bank account, applying for a job, following up on your applications, working on your resume, your cover letter, setting up a payment plan for an account that you have, or simply just being honest with where you spend your energy, your money, and where all of that is going. So it doesn't make it any less magical when we bring it down into the earth element and we ground it and we make it practical. It doesn't take the magic away. Earth magic it does what the earth element itself does. It brings our intention into form. So we're going to talk in just a moment about how to tell whether the element of earth is balanced within you, or whether you kind of have more excessive earth energy or more deficient earth energy. But before I go into that, I'm just going to say hi to those joining us in the chat. So Merry Meet to everybody. I can see here Lisa, Merry Meet, and Tommy, and Debbie is here. She said her cat is also here saying hello. Merry Meet, and Merry Meet to Jenny. Welcome everybody. If you're here, let us know you're here. Also, engagement helps us just get this fed to more people. We're having a lot of engagement issues with the feeds lately. So just the more you comment, the more it helps us out. So let's talk about what does it mean to have balanced earth energy within us. Now, our goal with everything, when it comes to our chakras, when it comes to our elements within us, it's all about finding balance. So when we notice that something has kind of gotten out of balance, we can use the elements to bring it back into balance. So sometimes what will happen, so for example, before I get into like the lists, let's say a person is extremely anxious. So what I would say about that from a kind of energetic level, of course, there's physical things that could be going on with neurotransmitters. There could be situational things going on in a person's life. There can be things of not eating enough or lack of sleep, or all these different things that could contribute to the feeling of anxiety. But it can also have to do with energetically what is going on with our elements. So when a person is anxious, oftentimes they have too much air. So an excessive amount of air, which is causing their thoughts to be very anxious, especially if they have anxious thoughts. They may also have too much fire, but most of the time it's an excess of air. But they may also have a deficiency of earth, because earth can help to ground us and bring us down. So anytime that you are feeling out of sorts, it's always worth asking yourself, where am I in relation to my elements? Which ones am I feeling pretty balanced with versus which ones do I feel are a little out of whack? And then our goal then with all of our magic is to help bring that back into balance. So what does balanced earth look like? Well, a person who is balanced in the earth element is feeling present in their body. They are feeling grounded. We'll be talking more about that later. What is groundedness? I do believe that probably almost everybody watching this, even if you think you're grounded, you're probably less grounded than you really think you are. And we'll be talking about some ways to kind of tell a little bit later. But to really be balanced with earth, we're feeling very grounded and present in our body. If you're feeling kind of cut off here with the body, the head cut off from the body, which is often very common in those of us who are very spiritual, we're up in the head, we're up in the higher energetic centers, then we're not really as present as we could be. To really know that earth is balanced within you, being able to follow through with the plans that you make, with the decisions that you make, with the ideas that you have. Knowing your limits is also a very good way to know that you are grounded within the earth element. Taking care of your practical needs, whatever those are, whether that's sleep or food or movement or rest. feeling connected to your home, to your land, to the place that you're in. That is also a good way to know that Earth is balanced within you. Having healthy boundaries around your time and your money and your energy and your body. Being patient with long-term growth. This is a hard one for many of us, and it has to do with, some of it can be just our personalities, but a good portion of it has to do with the world that we're living in. Everything is so fast-paced. We are just used to being able to hit a button and just get things on demand. But when it comes to the deeper, more important things in our lives, like our spiritual growth and working on our emotions and working through our negative thoughts, like in our shadow work and our witchcraft, all of these are long-term paths and long-term goals. And so when we are really grounded in the earth element and the earth element's really balanced within us, we're okay with the long road. We're okay with the long haul, and we have patience because we can see our growth. Even if our growth is small, we're able to see it and be okay with it. Also, we know that we are really balanced with the earth element when we are dependable, without abandoning ourselves. So that doesn't mean that we are always taking care of everybody else's needs and being the one that everyone depends on. But when we say that we'll do something, we do it. We're the kind of person that shows up when we say that we will. So that would be a way that one would know that your earth element was grounded and balanced within you. So share in the chat, let us know whether you're here live or you're watching back later. Let us know where you feel you are with the earth element. Do you resonate with these ideas of being balanced with the earth element? Or maybe you'll resonate with some of these ideas from the next list, which is having an excess amount of earth energy. And before I go into these, I'm also going to quickly note that it is very common to identify and resonate with different items on each of the lists. The reality is that you're always working for balance, which means that some aspects of you are in balance, some aspects of you may tip to the excessive side, some aspects of you may tip to the deficient side. So it's very common to be resonating with all three lists. But pay attention to which parts of the list you're resonating with. So what does excessive earth energy look like? Well, it looks like stagnation. And stagnation we talk a lot about when we're talking about energetic balancing. We talk about stagnation a lot. Stagnation is when our energy isn't moving properly in our body. And it can show up as physical tightness in the body. It can show up as illnesses. It can show up as thoughts that are not reflective of like our better good. It can show up as kind of labile emotions or emotions all over the place. But stagnation is very much connected to the earth element. So if we have stagnant energy in the body, this is already a sign that we have kind of an excessive amount of earth. There can also be rigidity, and that rigidity can be in the physical body, but it can also be in other aspects of our life. So it can be around, are we able to go with the flow? If we're able to go with the flow, we have nice water energy moving through us. If we're unable to go with the flow, that can be a deficient water, and it can also be an excessive amount of earth. Being overly cautious. Of course, caution is always good, especially in today with the number of scams and things out in the world, and also the great amount of trauma that many people experience. But when we're overly cautious and it really gets in the way of us living our best life, then this is going to be a sign that is excessive. The key to all of this is going to be how do you feel about it? So if you feel good about the amount of caution that you're taking, then it's likely to be just fine and balanced. But if you feel worried about it, and you feel like maybe it is getting in the way of you being able to do some of the things you'd want to do, then that would be a sign that it has become excessive. Fearing change. Change is a normal part of life. Some of the changes feel negative at the time. Some of the changes feel positive at the time. When we're really fearing change and it's kind of crippling us, this is going to show us that we have an excess amount of earth energy. That can also lead us into clinging to what feels familiar, even if those things are not for our higher good. Hoarding resources. This is a big one. I personally believe in the collective. There is like a lot of hoarding energy that probably has to do with the fact that we live in a time when there's so much instability. So whenever we feel unstable or we feel insecure, it's just unconsciously we're going to gather things around us that make us feel safer. So in the collective, there's a lot of hoarding of resources, money, objects, emotion, things that make us feel emotionally safe. So kind of think about what is your relationship with things, with good material things, and if you feel like you put a lot of what would be the word, significance to them, greater than what they actually are, then that might be a sign that you're hoarding in some way, but generally it goes back to this ability, this feeling, or perhaps an unconscious one, that you are feeling unstable or insecure in some way. Over identifying with our goods, with physical material things in our world, or also over identifying with our routines. So this kind of goes back to people who are very fixated and stuck and or have some trouble with change, or like kind of going off routine. Like if you were asked to go off your daily routine, if this would cause you a great amount of anxiety, there's a good chance that maybe you have an excessive amount of earth at this time. Staying in situations, we kind of mentioned this one earlier, staying in situations because they are familiar, not necessarily because they are healthy, and also mistaking control for security. So again, we're always looking for security, stability, groundedness. These are all the ideas, the main themes of the earth element and of the root chakra. In our quest to have those things, to feel those things, then it may lead us into kind of an excessive relationship with the earth energy. So let us know, are you resonating with anything here? Excess earth. Also, depression will often be an excess amount of earth and an excess amount of water. And what is water and earth, soil do when they come together? Is too much of them, they make mud. So that's kind of how we think of depression when we're talking about energy as well. So let us know, how are you feeling? Are you balanced? Do you resonate with some from that list, from the excessive list? And then let's go into the deficient list, and then I'm going to go back to the chat. So the feeling deficient with the earth energy within us can leave us feeling scattered and uprooted. So again, scatteredness can be too much air and tends to also be not enough earth. Difficulty completing things. So got a lot of ideas, got momentum to get things started, but we don't actually take them their full course. This would be a sign of having deficient earth energy. Trouble caring for your body or your own needs. So this can be a big one for a lot of people, and a lot more people than are willing to admit it. We just live in a society where we're just not caring for ourselves enough. I think it has to do with the mentality of and the reality of how much most of us have to work. People should not have to work so much just to get by, so that our bodies end up broken and we're not able to care for our needs. But this is a very real reality for many people, is just not really being able to care for our body and our own needs. Avoiding things like money conversations, paperwork, chores, practical decisions, things that are really connected to the earth element. Sometimes we just avoid those, and that would show that we're having a deficient amount of earth energy. Feeling disconnected from our home or from a place that we dwell in. Weak boundaries around our time, our energy, and our resources. Living in our ideas and our emotions or our spiritual concepts without any physical follow through. So we can have a lot of ideas. So that's going to be a lot of air energy up there. But we don't actually bring those into the reality of the physical plane. It can also be like a lot of spiritual ideas, just living up in this kind of spiritual world, but never really getting very far by bringing that into your practical life. And then, of course, not feeling grounded. So let us know. These are all the deficient, that deficient side of earth element, of the earth element. So where are you at today? You can also kind of think about where are you at generally, and then where are you at today? Because of course these things can fluctuate and change minute by minute, actually. So let's go into the chat. Let's see how people are feeling about their own balance. So Lisa says she's feeling pretty balanced with her earth energy. That is great. Debbie says, would intuition be air or earth? Intuition is generally water, the water element. I would say would be intuition because we have to flow really well in order to really be tapped into our intuition. Debbie says she feels like probably excess earth right now. Tommy said the fear of economic insecurity is a big deal. And exactly. And that's why I feel that like collectively we all probably have issues with the earth element because for so many of us there's just global economic insecurity. There's economic insecurity in people's individual countries, especially in the US, where I live and where many of our viewers are. And then just our individual economic insecurity. So it's a huge deal. It's very real. And it's absolutely going to impact our elements. And so all that really means is, because we know that that's already in the collective, we know it's already a reality, it just means that we're going to help ourselves if we do more work around the earth element, which is what the rest of the episode is going to be about. Debbie said, could you put links to the other elements you talked about? I can't do it while I'm live here because I have to go search for them, but I can put them in afterwards, definitely. And so far we have done all the other elements and we're on earth. So we've done air, fire, and water. Chelsea said she's very much air. And that's okay too. It's always good to know like which one we are, right? And then think about how we would work to balance the other ones within us. And it's also important to remember too that you will change day by day. So some days you may have this sort of elemental profile that you are most of the time, and then depending on what happens to you, you will get knocked kind of out of your balance, and some of your elements will be more excessive and some of your elements will be more deficient, and they will change. So just kind of going back to what we were talking about, the economic situation. If you're sitting watching gas prices rise and groceries and not being able to afford the same things that you could afford last year or even a few weeks ago, that's obviously going to impact our stability and our security. And so it's going to knock everybody's earth element out a little bit. So you may normally be pretty grounded in earth, but then you find yourself kind of knocked out because of the things that are happening. And the same is true for any of the elements, any situational things, whether they are like collective, global, within our communities or even just within ourselves and our personal issues will knock us off balance at times. So, Tommy said a lot of it is resonating with him, and yeah, I mean, I figured it would resonate with a lot of people, and then Chelsea said I basically have 0 earth in my chart, and that is also something to consider. Like, we're not going to dive deep into that in the episodes, but it is worth looking at your astrological chart and looking at the different planets that you have in the different signs, and then figuring out which element you have more of and which elements you have less of in your chart. And what a lot of people will find is that that very much resonates with how they feel too. So when they sit and they listen to these episodes on like the different excesses and deficiencies in the elements and the balance in the elements, a lot of times they'll resonate with if they're deficient in that element in their chart, they'll also be feeling deficient in that element in their lives. So I am also very deficient in earth energy in my chart. There's very little of it. It's mostly fire and water and some air. Very little earth. And so what I've had to do is I've actually had to do a lot of earth-based practices to help me feel more balanced. And that is basically what the rest of this episode is going to be about. So if you are feeling like, yep, earth is a bit or a lot unbalanced in my life, then you're in luck because now we're going to talk about that. So first, I'm going to start just with the simple correspondences. I know as witches, we love our correspondences. Correspondences to me are great because they're a real like DIY way to work with magic. So if you know the correspondences to a certain thing, you can begin to build spells or practices around that thing. And then after I list off these correspondences, then we're going to get into some practices that you can use as well as a spell if you want to connect more to the earth element. So correspondences of earth. So first of all, let's start with the direction. So the direction of the earth element is typically north. Now you will find some traditions that will have different associations with the elements and directions, but most will typically say north and earth are connected. We place the north quarter candle at the northern point in our circle. The season and time that is connected to the earth element is winter and midnight. So now, it does not mean that if you want to do earth-based practices, you have to do them at midnight, and it doesn't mean that you have to do them in the winter. But it is important to kind of note that at those times, there's going to be more earth energy around. So you can tap into it. So, for example, you may start to feel kind of airy and we'll feel kind of fiery in the summer, right? And then we often will feel kind of airy and windy in the fall. And this is not just like, by the way, this is not just our kind of modern witchcraft associations, but like, for example, Ayurveda teaches us the same exact thing. And then when we get into the winter, it's an earthy kind of energy. So people who already have excessive earth, so let's say you have a ton of earth in your chart, that you want to just be mindful of what happens to you as you go into the winter, because it may become even more excessive during that time. Now, those of you who have like not very much earth in your chart, you may find that winter is a really good time for you, perhaps because there's more earth energy around. So those are the times and how we think of those time associations. Colors. So if you want to work with the earth element, typically the color is green. It's going to be greens and browns and blacks that are mostly associated with it, especially from like a Western esoteric kind of system. But what you will also notice is that red is associated with the earth element, and that is because of the Eastern systems, like the chakras, for example, which associate the earth element with the root chakra, which vibrates the color red. And that can be a little bit weird for people who kind of practice magic, but for me, it's just sort of like I associate earth with green, and then if I'm really bringing in, like if I really wanted to focus on earth through my root chakra, then I connect it to red. And I like to think of it as like the clay, the color, the red clay, or like the red rocks of like Sedona or parts of Utah or something like that. Tools and objects. So the witch's tool that is connected to the earth element is the pentacle or the pentagram or the paten, all related to a pentacle. So a pentacle is typically the one that you wear. It typically has a circle around it. A pentagram, you could wear a pentagram, but typically doesn't have a circle around it. It's just a star. Now a paten is like, I'm glad I found this. It was actually on one of my altars. It's got wax on it, so hopefully you could still kind of see it. You could see it. So this is a paten I got a long, long time ago. So it's just a symbolic representation of the earth element for an altar. What I really like about this one in particular, and you can find ones that are kind of similar, is it has a little space so that you could put a chime candle in the middle. And then I don't know if you can tell very well, but it has all these little holes around here where a person could put incense. I like to use it to sort of like an offering plate on the altar and just a symbolic representation of the earth element on my altar. Now, traditionally, there are stories that say that, or the lore says that patens were often made of wax, so they could be tossed into a fire to get rid of evidence of the actual pentacle itself. But you can find them made of wood. You can find them made of different things. You don't need one of these, but I'm just showing you this in case, like, sometimes people wonder, like, well, what do I put on the altar for earth? Like, it's, I put my chalice there for water. I've got like a candle for fire. For air, we might have our incense or sage or feathers or different things like that. And for the earth element, you can have, I'm going to talk about some other things in just a moment, but you could have salt or crystals or different things like that, but you could also have a paten like this. Okay, stones and crystals, a bowl of salt. Sometimes you can have more than one of these things too if you want. Soil, a bowl of soil can be substituted for a bowl of salt. Seeds, keys are often associated with the earth element. Bones or like ancestral objects or items. Coins, clay or pottery because it comes from the earth. Food, so our food offerings are very much related to the earth. Now, different foods might have different elemental associations, but food in general is related to the earth element. Plants of any kind. Now, sometimes, depending on how you use it, a cauldron could also be connected to the earth element in some traditions. So I usually think of the cauldron as being connected to the water element because it's like the womb of the goddess. Um, People will associate it with the fire element because you burn things in it, and then still other people will associate it with the earth element, mainly because it's made of metal and it comes from the earth. So herbs, plants, and resins. And my list here now coming up now with symbols and plants and animals and different things like this are not exhaustive. So if you hear, if you have like something that you connect to the earth element that isn't on my list, please feel free, share it in the chat. Because again, my lists are not totally exhaustive, and there's plenty of other things that are connected to the element of earth that aren't on these lists. Now, herbs in general and plants in general, just like stones, are connected to the earth element just in general because they come from the earth. But plants themselves then are connected to various different elements. So, for example, we would say like cinnamon, for example, it can be connected to the earth element because it is an herb, but it's also usually connected to the fire element. So each one will have its own specific elemental correspondence as well. But here are herbs, resins, and plants that are more typically associated with the earth element. Patchouli. Patchouli is a really, I happen to love patchouli. Not everybody likes the smell of patchouli. If you like it, it's a really good incense and oil. Very nice for connecting to the earth element. A very good money draw or kind of abundance, prosperity drawer. Vetiver is another herb connected to the earth element. Cedar. A lot of our trees like pine and oak are connected to the earth element. Sage, comfrey, thyme, basil, and nettles. And again, my list is not exhaustive, but at least gives you some ideas. Now, as far as the herbs go, you of course can burn the herbs. You can get incense and burn the incense of the herbs. You can get oils. Here's some smoke-free options for those of you who are not able to burn things. You can make sachets, and you can put the herbs and oils in sachets. You can just get oils to wear. You can put the oils or the herbs into floor washes or sprays or things to clean your home. Bath blends that you can use in the bath or the shower. You don't even have to get anything fancy. You could just get like cheesecloth and you can tie the herbs up in it, and then you can hang it on the shower or the tub spigot. Spell jars is another great way to work with herbs without having to burn anything, and also just your regular kitchen witchcraft, which we will talk about a little at the end. Now, stones and crystals also, just like herbs, stones in general are connected to the earth because they come from the earth. But there are some stones that are more specifically associated with the earth element. These tend to be, it should be no surprise, but they tend to be green, brown, and black because those are the colors of the earth, and red because those are the colors of the root chakra. So essentially, I'm about to list off some, but any stone that is black, brown, or green, great for working with the earth element, and that also goes for the red stones. Now, red stones can also be connected to fire. It really just depends on how you're looking at it. So hematite, smoky quartz, I've got them kind of out of order, so I'm going to kind of do the darker ones. Obsidian, black tourmaline, onyx, these would all be great. They're really great for connecting to the root chakra, good for the earth element. Then getting into some green stones like moss agate, green aventurine, serpentine, that's one that I really love. Anything green, malachite, that's another great one for the earth element. And then of course there's like the red stone. So garnet is it's kind of the go-to stone for the earth, or for the root chakra. So it's also very good for the earth element. And also jasper of any kind, but specifically like a red jasper, really nice for connecting to the root chakra and therefore the earth element. Now, if there are other stones or a particular stone that you love, or a particular stone or herb that you love for earth element, put it in the chat, share with us. Everybody learns from what you guys put in the chat as well. Okay, animals and symbolism. So we've already spoken a bit about some of the symbolism, some of the things tools that you can use to represent the earth element. Here are some animals. The bear, bull, deer, all of these are really connected to the earth element. The snake is connected to the earth element. The tortoise, sometimes reptiles like lizards tend to be associated with the fire element, but turtles and turtles could represent the water element as well. Tortoises tend to represent the earth element. And also, depending on the tradition, sometimes the wolf is also connected to the earth element. Now, other symbols, roots and trees. So these kind of give you ideas of things like symbols that you could bring onto an earth-based altar, or symbols that you could carve into candles, or you could draw places to connect to the earth element. Roots and trees, mountains, also, by the way, places that you could go to connect to the earth element. Caves, these are all places that are very, very deeply steeped in earth energy. Forests, of course. Bones and stones are also connected to the earth element. Seeds and soil. And then, of course, like we talked about earlier, the pentacle and the pentagram. And then before we go on to the actual practices, let's talk about deities too. For those of you who work with deities, I would always recommend if you're searching for a deity to work with, let's say you decide I really want to work with the earth element to kind of balance it within my own life. Maybe I need more grounding, maybe I need some prosperity magic, or the ability to follow through on things. And you may just, you could take any of these correspondences, create some kind of a DIY spell or practice or ritual for yourself. If you work with deities, you could bring in any deity from your own practice or the pantheon that you work with. Find the deity in that pantheon who's associated with the earth, and begin to work with that deity. But here's also a list of deities that are associated with the earth element. So we have all the earth mothers. These are just a few, so not all of them, but Gaia, Demeter, Ceres, Pachamama, one of my favorites. I also have a cat named Pachamama. For those who don't know, Pachamama is a pre-Incan deity, earth mother. Prithvi is the personification of the earth in the Hindu pantheon. And then Ganesha, because his association with the root chakra, he is also connected to the earth element. Joro, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, is a Norse goddess of the earth, personification, and also Thor's mother. And then there's also Sif, who is an earth deity in the Norse pantheon. Ki, I think I'm spelling it, or is it pronouncing it right? Ki is a Sumerian goddess of the earth. And then there's Danu, the Celtic earth goddess. So these are just a few. If you know of some other deities that are connected to the earth element, please feel free to share those in the chat as well. And then we're going to dive into some earth magic in practice. But let me just go back to the chat for a moment. So I see people still talking about how they love patchouli. I personally love it, but I know there's people who just really don't like it at all. Lisa said, I am burning patchouli right now. And she said, and I have garnet earrings on. So she's all ready for the earth element today. And also, I think you were the one who said you felt very balanced. So good, because you're already doing some earth-based practices right now. And Lisa said she collects turtles too. So a lot of earth energy within her and around her. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's talk about a few kind of practices that people could do for specific themes related to the earth. And then I have a spell that I am going to share at the end. And then next week, we'll dive into the shadow work that we can use to also balance the earth energy within us. So the first theme is grounding and embodiment. And by embodiment, the real question is, how in your body do you feel? So it's really something to ask yourself. You might be surprised how disembodied you feel at times. You might say, like, right now you're feeling very grounded because you're sitting here and you're enjoying the episode. But maybe there are other times in your life, or even times earlier today, when you were feeling less embodied. So it's really wise when we're studying the earth element to just ask ourselves from time to time, how embodied do I feel? Generally, the vast majority of us are probably less grounded than we really know. We may have begun to compensate. So, we're spending a lot of energy up in these upper chakras. It's just sort of the way that we are, or the way that we've kind of developed the way that we are. And so we don't really notice how ungrounded we really are. So I would recommend for everybody, even if you think you're grounded, spend a few minutes every day just tapping into earth energy. So for example, stand barefoot on your floor or your ground if you're able. We're moving into the late spring and into the summer season eventually, and so it's warmer now. I know this is harder to do if you're in a cold place. But standing barefoot on the floor and the ground can really help to ground you. Notice the weight of your body. Something I do in like our yoga classes sometimes, especially if we're working with the earth element, is just to tell people to stand, as like grounded as you can, and then lean forward and put more of your weight onto the balls of your feet, and then lean backwards and put more weight onto your heels. And it's a really good, actually, balancing practice, but it just also kind of teaches you to notice the distribution of weight on your body, because you may not pay attention to that very often. But it's a really good way to ground yourself, is just to really distribute the weight evenly in your body. Eating something nourishing after ritual, well, eating something nourishing in general, but also eating something nourishing after ritual. Sometimes ritual takes up a lot of energy, and to help us ground back down, it's great to be in the etheric plane and to be connected to that ritual energy, but we also live on this earth. Christopher Penzak talks about this a lot. He's like, we can't just live up in that etheric world all the time. You got to come back down. This is where you live right now. It's where you've chosen to live for this incarnation. And so eat something nourishing, and that will help to ground you. Place a hand on your belly, on your chest, on your legs. Your legs are very much connected to the earth, your feet and your legs. Working with your breath, can actually, you would think that's mostly working with the air element, and it absolutely will. Tap into the air element, but if you take really slow, deep breaths, that will help to ground you. In particular, having a longer exhale than your inhale. I was just at the dentist earlier today, and it was really quite bad, and in a lot of pain, very painful. And so I was just trying to do some really deep breaths while I was there, and it helps. It helps to get through those kind of like trying times. So I like to do a count of 4 on the inhale, and then a count of 6 or 8 on the exhale, and that just helps to bring your energy down and ground your energy. And also holding a stone in your hands and kind of naming where you are right now. Sometimes we're in the future, we're in the past, and we're really not here in the present. And so we're going to talk about a practice a little bit later, kind of like a little spell that you can do with a stone that kind of revolves around this idea. But holding that stone and just naming where you are right now, what feels real in your world right now. The other thing I wanted to mention before I move on to the next thing is that if you feel that you're ungrounded, or if you just want to do kind of an exploration of grounding, I recommend just grounding several times throughout the day. Like if you're waiting in line at the bank or the grocery store or wherever you're waiting in line, just drop some roots down imagine dropping roots down from your feet into the ground, and just breathe a couple breaths and draw some earth energy up into your body. It can take less than a minute to do this, and it can just be a really powerful practice. If you do that several times throughout the day, I guarantee you're going to feel a lot different. You'll probably feel a lot more present. Okay, so let us know, how grounded do you feel? Like, do you feel, when you hear me say it, most people are pretty ungrounded? Does that resonate with you? Do you feel pretty grounded? Do you feel pretty ungrounded? Let us know how you feel when it comes to your own grounding. Now, another thing that is connected to the earth element is the protection of like physical boundaries. So there is protection we may need with our kind of energetic boundaries or our emotions or thoughts or things like that, but the protection of your physical boundaries. So different things you can do to tap into the earth element around your protection is making salt bowls or making like salt kind of boundaries, scattering salt in different places. Be careful if you have like pets that are on the ground and might lick up the salt. You want to be mindful of that. But you can create a salt boundary at your front door. Some kind of a threshold blessing, placing stones near the door, or maybe you take some of those earth element herbs and you put them in a sachet and you hang them right by your doorway. Sweeping or mopping with intention, to get the kind of dust and the grime out of your space, clearing the physical area, right? Placing wards around your home that are to protect the physical boundaries of your home, using keys as a symbol of access and protection as well. So we talked earlier about the key being connected to the earth element. So you can also use keys in your protection magic, and that helps to tap into the earth element. The other thing is the witch's bottle. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of it because I've talked about it several times in more detail. There's an episode we have, and I think it's episode 111, and it's on protection magic. I believe it's 111. And I go into more detail in that episode about how to make a witch's bottle. But a witch's bottle is essentially a spell bottle that you put a bunch of like kind of undesirable things in it, like glass and razor blades and things with jagged edges and nails and things like that. Sometimes people pee in them. It's just like it's supposed to be undesirable things, and you seal it up really good, and then you bury it somewhere on your property. And it can be used very, very much to protect the property. To me, I feel very safe having one at the perimeter of the property. So those are some ideas of kind of protecting your physical area with the earth element. Now, another theme that's very much connected to the earth element is prosperity. This is one that a lot of people will probably resonate, having resources, having stability in a world where the economy is unstable at the time. This is really important magic for us, right? So what are some examples? So we could make a money bowl. We could make a prosperity jar. It's not difficult to make these. Sometimes people think you have to have these specific instructions. It's just any of those correspondences I gave earlier, symbols, anything symbolic of the earth, the herbs, the stones, all of those things can be put into a jar with the intention of drawing prosperity into your home. People like to do the blowing cinnamon over the threshold on the first of the month. Honestly, there's no like magical connection to the first of the month because, as you know, the calendar that we're on is like not real time. It's not time connected to like lunar or solar energy at all. It's just one month has 30 days, one month has 31. But what I think blowing cinnamon across the threshold on the first of the month does is it's just a reminder that that's the day to do it. So really, it's just doing the practice cyclically. But if you wanted to do it, like sometimes people freak out because they miss the first of the month, you can do it on the new moon, for example. You can do it on the full moon. You can do it on the 14th of every month. It's just a reminder to do something cyclically. Other ways to kind of work with prosperity magic and the earth element is a green candle, and then you could carve sigils into it, or you could carve symbols of the earth element into it. You could then infuse or dress it with like cinnamon oil, for example, and then roll it in basil if you would like. You can use coins in that spell as well, bringing in any of these elements, these symbols of the earth element. Blessing your wallet or your bank card. I like to do put little sigils in my wallet, or put stones. Like I have some stones in my wallet. So you can always do that and just kind of bless it that it will always be full or always have enough. creating a money altar or a resource altar where you put coins, seeds, stones, or any symbols that kind of feel like they resonate with stability for you. And then, of course, always with all of this, it's not just doing the magic, it's then pairing it with the practical action in the mundane world. And then that really helps to tap into the earth element. A little bit more. Let's see. I think we got two more practices, and then we'll go into the spell. So, kitchen magic. So, food. We talked about food and that being so connected to our nourishment and our body. So, anytime that you do any magic in your kitchen, you are connecting to the earth element. So, stirring with intention, stirring your soup or your tea or coffee or oatmeal with intention, choosing ingredients that you cook with based on their correspondences. So like maybe you want to bring in more of the earth element. So maybe do some research about what foods are more connected to the earth element. I will tell you, like from the kind of like a Ayurvedic perspective, things that are connected to the root chakra are red. So red foods are connected to the earth element, and also foods that grow inside the earth. So like root vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes and turnips and things like that. The stuff that goes really low to the ground is always going to be connected to the earth. Not that other foods aren't, but in particular those ones. Baking for protection, prosperity, love, whatever your intention is. Blessing your meals. I like to do the little like where you rub your nail beds together for a while, like about a minute, and then you just raise some energy. And then when you're done with that, just direct that energy into your food with love and blessings to all who eat it. And then you consume those intentions. Using seasonal produce also helps to connect you to the earth element because you're really living within the seasons of the area that you live in. And then, of course, always just cooking with care. Trying not to be angry or upset when you're cooking, and try to, ground yourself and root yourself before you cook. And then cooking with those more positive intentions. And then just a few practices of just how to connect to the earth around you, your space that you live on, planting seeds with intention, whether it's planting them in pots or planting them on your property, buying spell ingredients that were created ethically and safely and environmentally appropriate. If you leave items out after a spell, like let's say you put them outside, burying those things or leaving them out, but only if they are like safe for the earth or safe for animals around you. Creating a small land offering, leaving offerings at trees. People like to pour water or milk or honey at the base of a tree as a beautiful offering, or leave coins there. Working with stones or soil, leaves, acorns that you gather, ethically. It's just sitting with your back against a tree and just breathing in rhythm with that tree. So these are all just different ways that we can connect to the land, bless the land, and really be in partnership and relationship with the land around us. So let us know if any of these, kind of resonate with you. Do you do any of these things already? Are there any things here, other things that you do to connect to the earth element in your regular practice? And before I go on to the spell, let me just jump into the chat. So Debbie said, if I am excess, then do I have to release how grounded I feel? So it's a good question. So I think when a person is in excess, it sort of depends on which areas of the excess they're feeling. Like we still want to be grounded, so like grounding is good. We're usually going to be excess when we kind of say that we're excess. It's usually because we're feeling like kind of inflexible, or we're feeling like not going with the flow, or not feeling or maybe fearing change, or resistance to change, things like that. So I honestly believe, just like with the chakras, if you work with any of these like symbols related to the earth element, it will help you to rebalance it. It's not necessarily just going to bring in earth element energy. So like, for example, a person who's already in excess, they might be afraid, oh, if I do this, I'm going to bring in too much earth energy. But really the symbols themselves, all you have to do is kind of set the intention of rebalancing and then bring those symbols and those practices in. I think too that somebody's so this is what I would say to somebody who feels like they're excess in the root chakra. I would say like do more movement, practice being more flexible, kind of you do some shadow work around it as well. Like where do you think that the excess earth energy comes from? A lot of times it's going to come from our beliefs or our fears that we might have, some of them unconscious, some of them barely conscious, but doing some work around that as well. Lisa said she keeps stones in her wallet. Yeah, it's a good practice. I started doing that a couple of years ago. Okay, let me leave you with just a little like spell. So this is just a very simple, or I'm not even sure. Some might call it a spell. Other people would just call it like a practice or a mini spell. But it's just really to get to the bottom of what you need most right now. And also to sort of figure out what is most important presently so that we're more focused here in the present and not so much in the past or in the future. So in order to do this spell, this mini spell or practice, you'll need one stone. You can choose the one that you get, that you want, whatever you're called to. A small bowl of salt or soil is optional, and then just a little bit of time is all you really need. So the only thing you really need is the stone, and you're going to use the stone as an anchor to kind of anchor you and ground you. So you're going to hold the stone in your hand and just really notice, like, this is about being present, but really notice what the stone feels like. Really, really tapping into and paying attention to the weight of the stone, the temperature of what it feels like in your hand, its texture, its shape. And then you can say something along these lines, like, I call upon the element of earth to help me return back to what is real, what is mine to tend, and what can support me for now. But you can also change those words. I call upon the earth element to help me return to what is real, what is mine to tend, and what can support me right now. And you could just alter it for whatever you most need, maybe to return me back to stability or groundedness or security. Maybe just kind of thinking about like Debbie talking about being excess earth, you could just say, I call upon the earth element to help me, you know, release my resistance to change or my fear of change or whatever it is that you determine is kind of connected to that excess earth energy that you're experiencing. And then what you want to do is we want to really connect to the physical world here. So you're just going to simply ask in your mind or out loud, what needs my care in the physical world right now? So that's right in the present, right? So what needs my care in the physical world right now? And then you're just going to listen. And so even better would be to like, I would love to do this like sitting with my back against a tree, hold that stone, and then just kind of breathe with that tree and then just listen to what comes through when I say, what needs my care in the physical world right now? And just listen for that answer. Don't second guess it. Don't question it. Those first initial things that pop into your head, really explore what they mean. And you can also, like, if you can call upon your guides before you do this, or your higher self to kind of come forward and help you see the answer here. But it allows you to just kind of get that one simple answer. Breathe deep into your body as you're doing this, name that thing out loud. And then whatever that thing is, whether it's like care of your physical body or movement or grounding or financial things or whatever it is that comes through, like what needs my care in the physical world right now. See if you can name one simple thing that you could do. Just one step. It doesn't need to solve the problem for good. Just one step I could take in the right direction, knowing that this is the thing that needs my care in the physical world right now. And then you can carry that stone with you in your pocket, or put it on a chain or something, place it on your altar, put it somewhere where you will see it and remember it. And then every time that you see it, you'll be reminded of this thing that needs your care in the physical world right now. This can just help you to stay connected and stay grounded. So So here are just some examples of like some mundane things you might do. Like maybe you need to drink more water. Maybe that's what comes through. Or make an appointment with a doctor you've been avoiding, or clean up your altar, or clean up a space in your house, or pay a bill you've been avoiding, or start an application for something that you want to apply for. Go outside, or make a meal, or go shopping so you get some groceries, or put a boundary around something, rest your body. So all of these things, like they might seem super mundane, but earth magic, there's between all of this, between the mundane and the magical, there's a very, very fine line anyway. And the sooner that we realize that, the better. But earth magic can look very, very mundane, and each of these could be a step forward of how to be present now, and how to focus on what you really need physically in this moment. So I'm just going to close with just like a little bit. We're kind of wrapping up what we talked about tonight, and and then previewing what we're going to talk about next week. So we talk about the element of earth being connected to our body, the material world, our resources, boundaries, protection of and our home, stability, security, patience, and also our ability to manifest and bring something into the physical plane. So I think what earth energy really teaches us about is that there really isn't a separation between the physical world and the spiritual world. And our spells, they could be very magical, but there's always this practical thing that we must do to follow them up, right? And so that's what the earth element asks us to do. What are you going to do to follow up that magic that you've done? How are you going to bring that into the world so you can also help manifest it, not just kind of putting the energy out there and hoping that something happens. It's like putting the energy out there and then directing it into your physical life as well. So next week, we're going to be talking about the earth element part 2. This is in relation to our shadow work. So we're going to look at, like, if you want to do some shadow work around the earth element, and especially for those of you who feel like your earth element is imbalanced, whether it was excessive or deficient or both, your shadow work can be another practice to help bring that element into balance. So we're going to be looking at what happens when we stagnate, what happens when we put up too many protective walls, what happens when like being practical has turned into fear, and what happens when we stay in situations just because they feel safe. So I hope that helps. I would love to hear from you, though. What part of this episode resonated the most with you? What is the kind of your take-home message today? And what do you think you're going to do to work with the earth element? That would be my assignment for you, or my suggestion would be to find a practical way to work with the earth element this week, and see where that gets you. So I hope that helps. So I'm going to move into the Q&A now, though I didn't have any questions that were left for me this week that I saw. So if anybody has any questions who are live, put them in the chat. And if you are also watching this back in replay, feel free to put questions here too. Anything I don't answer during the live, I always will go back and answer these later on. So while I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions for tonight, and of course these do not have to be related to the earth element. It can be anything related to witchcraft, shadow work, or energy work. But while I wait for those, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up. So next week on, let's see, what is today? The 12th. So next week would be the 19th. We're going to do part 2 of the earth element. And then I am forgetting what my schedule, I had some like cool stuff planned for, but I can't remember what it was the following month or following week. Oh, plant magic. I felt it was like, I've never done an episode on plant magic. So we're going to do, I think we're doing an episode on plant magic the following week. That would be on 5/26. And then on 6/2, we're going to do an episode on the Witch's Guide to Offerings. So that's a question I get asked a lot about, is like, what are good offerings to leave for deities, or to leave for elementals or fairies or earth spirits or different things. So we're going to talk about what are the different types of offerings, how do we give offerings, what do we do after we give offerings, and so that is what we're going to focus on. That's kind of the next month of episodes. So I think that's about all of my announcements. The only other thing I will mention is that our membership, our Shadow Seekers membership, will be opening up soon to take in the next round of members. We are working to shift the way that we enroll people. I think we are going to do another kind of like launch where we'll have a ritual or a workshop that's free that people can come to, and then that will invite you to join us in our membership. If you are somebody who's interested in doing deeper shadow work and energy work, our Shadow Seekers membership might be a great fit for you. It's a small group where we work together to kind of work through what is going on with us, how we balance our energy, how we work through some of our blockages, the things that are holding us back. And we're really, our goal is to kind of elevate our spirituality and our emotional intelligence and everything like that. So to me, it's like when I started doing shadow work, it was the real game changer for me. It opened up so much in my craft and my witchcraft and my ability to connect to the deities and everything, because I was working through my own blockages. And that's what we do in the membership. So if it sounds like a good fit for you, watch for that, because we will be opening the membership up very soon. And also my course, Demystifying Witchcraft, will also be coming out soon for the general public. Up until now, it has only been available for those in our Shadow Seekers membership, but it will soon be available for the general public. In that course, I teach the foundations of witchcraft, and everything from casting a circle and calling quarters to how to do spells, to how to time your magic, to working with deities and the different holidays that we celebrate. And so if you've been looking for kind of a step-by-step guide of the foundations of witchcraft, the course is a great course for you. And on top of that, it also leads to an invitation to initiate into our online coven of Midnight's Flame, if you desire to be a part of that group. So look for those. Those should both be coming out very soon, within the next month or two. I've got a lot of work going on behind the scenes, getting all of that ready for everybody. So let me just go back in the chat, see if anybody else is here, or sorry, anybody else has any questions before we log off. So Lisa said, do you think there's such a thing as having too many rocks or crystals? No, I do not think, we always joke about like, how many rocks or crystals does everybody have? A lot, a lot. I do think, like when it comes to, because we are talking about the earth energy and hoarding things, it's always like worth asking ourselves, like, what is the need and the desire to have so many things? Like, I have a lot of crystals too, but I also do pause and ask myself sometimes, like, do I need all of these things? I do not believe that a person can have two, but there's not like a rule that says how many crystals you should or shouldn't have. And it's also nice to have different crystals of different colors for different intentions. And some people just like to collect them. So Tommy said, is lapis lazuli a good stone for prosperity spells? To be honest with you, I think that any stone, it's probably not the most traditional one that people think about when they think of prosperity magic, but I think that any stone that resonates with a person is good for them. So lapis is often associated with the throat chakra. And the throat chakra is associated with our ability to manifest in the spiritual world. So if a person feels like they have blockages in the throat chakra, or maybe blockages kind of manifesting, I think that lapis would make a lot of sense in a prosperity spell, even though it's not a traditional one that people choose, or it's not the green color or anything like that. The other thing is that what makes lapis lapis and differs from sodalite is that lapis has the pyrite in it. And and pyrite, I didn't mention it, but pyrite is very much connected to the root chakra and to the earth element. So yeah, I think lapis is great to use in prosperity magic. Let me see if there's any other. Andrea said you could never have too many crystals or rocks. Yes. And Mary Meet to Sabrina, who I also see here. Mary Meet. She said, do you think shadow work and past lives regression go hand in hand? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that where a lot of like shadow work programs can fail is when they fail to address the fact that some of this stuff has come in from other lifetimes. Not all of what we work on in our shadow work is from this lifetime. So we may bring things in from the past lives, we may bring things in from sequences of past lives. And so absolutely, it absolutely should be worked on, and goes hand in hand with shadow work. I definitely agree. Um, Lisa said the stones are very beautiful, but she gives a lot away. Yeah, never feel bad about your stones. Never feel bad about your stones. Um, any more questions? Put them in the chat. But I think that's all I have to talk about tonight. And it looks like I've gone well over, like usual. So my focus is always to have like about a 40-minute episode. And next thing you know, it's over an hour. So, well, I'm going to sign off for now. If I did happen to miss anybody's questions or anything, I will go back afterwards. I'll put them in the chat, and I'm also going to put some links in the chat of the other episodes on the other elements. If you're watching back on YouTube, also you will find those in the comments underneath the video as well. So if you want to go back and watch the episodes on fire, air, and water, you'll be able to find those there. As always, thank you so much for being with me on Tuesday night. It's always such a pleasure to be with you. Make sure to leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the feed so we can get this out to more people. If you are not already subscribed to our Body Mind Witchcraft YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe to that. And also just a note for those who are part of our Facebook groups, there's some major things happening with the algorithm right now, and our reach has dropped tremendously. It's really heartbreaking to me. When Jesidor and I spend so much time trying to curate this group and make it a nice place. So just make sure if you're not seeing posts from us, you may need to go into the group and not just wait for it to come up in your feed. Comment and put some likes on some of the posts, and that will just help the algorithm know it's important content. A lot of the content gets really swept away and covered up by all the political content out there, which is important because that stuff's very important, but we want to make sure that we're seeing the spiritual stuff as well. So you could do us a favor, help out the group by commenting and doing some likes and things. All right, so great to be with you. See you next week where we will talk about the earth element and shadow work around that. And until next time, blessed be.